up front, my name is Marko Hochstrasser. I'm the moderator of today. I'm the co-founder of Nexoya, and we help marketeers to move the budgets smartly and automatically. And today I have two guests. On one side, I have Marko Saric, right? Exactly. He's the co-founder of Plausible Analytics, and
Saric.
Probably
you know all those football players and so on. Saric,
right? Yes. And probably the most advanced privacy-sensitive analytics tool, web analytics tool in Europe, I would say, right? So thanks for joining me, Marko. And we have Julius Kirscheneder, which probably, especially if you're in Switzerland, you should know Julius. He's one of the co-founders of the Neon Bank, the famous Neon Bank of Switzerland, which is called Neon as a Neon Bank. So I'll introduce both of you very quickly. Maybe Marko first, you can say a word about yourself, and then Julius.
Hey everyone, and thanks for the invite, Marko. I'm Marko Saric. I'm co-founder of Plausible Analytics. We do web analytics, so everyone knows Google Analytics, everyone probably has experience with it, but we do it in a different way, kind of more GDPR friendly way. So we're privacy first, we're open source, we're simple to use, we're lightweight, like this cookieless future, but we are in that future already. We don't use any cookies. So basically that's what we do. We are a startup, all bootstrapped. We're now up to 8 people. We have about 8,000 something paying subscribers. Plausible is used on more than 60,000 websites. We're tracking about 2 billion page views per month. So that's kind of a quick summary of what we do.
Cool. Thanks to be on stage today. And then Julius.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. As transparency and trust is really important for us to be clear on that, Neon, as Marko introduced us nicely, is not a bank. So we offer a bank account and a card, and it's the best what you can get in Switzerland in our point of view and in the point of view of our 130,000 users, I hope. But we don't have an own bank license, just to be clear on that. I'm really happy to be here today because we founded Neon 5 years ago, but the topic really followed me over my last 15 or 18 years in different roles. So I've started in consulting, doing projects for big retailers to implement marketing mix modeling combined with the first tries of digital attribution to be really able to track marketing costs, customer acquisition costs properly. I've then worked for a European affiliate marketing platform where, of course, we had to fight for the right commission and the fair commission for the different publisher models. So we also had the whole breadth of the topic. Another role was with ProSieben, where we then had a lot of analytics around and questions around how to attribute TV and use TV properly for the startups that we were investing in. And now with Neon in the last 5 years, it's a different challenge again as a startup, but especially as a startup with an app as a product where you enter, I'd say, the third level of challenges when it comes to tracking and attribution. So will be interesting today.
Cool. Thanks a lot for the intros, guys. And then let's jump directly into the agenda. So we will first talk a little bit about today. So what's best practice? How do you do it today? I will give a short 1-minute intro in that we all on the same page on attribution, and then dive obviously into the brains of Marko and Julius to get a little bit how they do it and also how they foresee it. And then as a second step, we will go a little bit into the future. So think about how we will attribute to the future, organic and also paid media, respectively, in our channels. And last but not least, Q&A. So again, feel free to put your questions in, and we are then happy to tackle them at the end as a group. And we'll also try to make this super exciting, obviously. So with that, let me shortly set the scene in a way that, okay, what is attribution modeling actually, and what do we talk about? Just to have clear fences here. I don't want to do a one-on-one training, no worries. It will not be 100 pages, just to have everybody on page. And so first, attribution modeling, obviously, when you look at path to conversion or path to registration, whatever, a customer clicks somewhere, buys something or visits a page or likes something in the digital world. That's simple attributing someone who clicks into a conversion. We all know, at least everybody who is here in the call and registered to the attribution topic, that the world looks a little bit different, right? We have many touch points of a customer. It can be organic through social media platforms, can be through even physical stores, towards digital worlds, towards advertising, towards the website itself, maybe multiple touch points to then buy a journey. And attribution, in a nutshell, is obviously we want to give the right credit to the right touch point. That in marketing, we can focus our investments into the right channel, into the right distribution, into the right media, and also the right content, right? If we know certain content is really relevant and certain not, or certain campaigns are, then this is the goal of attribution. And last but not least, to just make this clear why attribution is important, obviously, we want to give a person or our potential customer the best solution for the problem he has right now. And this is often overlooked at when we look at what is actually, why do we do campaigning and things like that. We actually want to serve someone and help someone to solve a problem, all right, with a good or a product or whatever he needs right now. And with that, just setting the scene very quickly, I want to dive directly into the questions. And how do you do attribution today, or how do you attribute your touch points today? And Marko, you just said you do it very differently. So do you know your user journey today of your customers? Like how do you got your first customer, and how are you now growing the customer base? Where does the customer see you? What's the user journey?
Yes. So basically, we're a startup. We started 2 years ago. We were 0. Today we're at like I said, 8,000 plus paying subscribers, and we make $1 million annual recurring revenue. So we've grown a lot in 2 years, but we've done it in, I guess, not a typical way. Things have changed for marketing. I've been a marketer for more than 10 years and 15 years, I guess. But since the GDPR, at least in European Union, things have changed. So Plausible is like built with the spirit of GDPR, our product, but also the way we do marketing. So actually, we've decided not to ask for consent at all, because we've seen the issues with consent. Those big banners on your site, they look ugly. People don't like them. Even if you do introduce them, chances are, 70, 80, 90% of people will just ignore them or say no to them. So we've just said, let's get rid of all third-party scripts. Let's get rid of any tracking of personal data. Let's get rid of any cookies. So we have no third-party scripts. We don't use cookies whatsoever. So we can only work with last click attribution. We don't do paid advertising either. Maybe in that sense, it's less important for us to actually know what happened 17 steps ago, because we don't actually go and spend $1 million on Facebook or Google. So like that kind of makes it less relevant to us. But basically, we grow with word of mouth. We can know where the visitors has arrived on that last visit when they signed up. But if they've heard about us 3 weeks before from one of the blog posts we published, or somebody shared a tweet about us on Twitter, that's kind of less clear. So basically, that's we live in that kind of world where we don't feel that we actually need to know that first initial step. Other than that it's working, that people find our product useful, that people keep sharing, that people keep subscribing, that we keep growing. So that's kind of a bit atypical, I guess, but that's the state that we're in.
So basically, you don't know your user journey right now, but obviously you see notions of it, right? You see some blogs work well, some not, and then they potentially adjust to that, right? So you obviously have a notion, but you don't know, because you don't track.
So specifically, we don't know. Like I cannot tell you we get 1,000 plus subscriber like new trials every month, but I can see their last click referral source. But how they heard about us, 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago, or was that like on the first that they heard about us? We don't know. We do know, like things such as the blog posts we published, which get the most traffic, where they get the traffic from. How many people talk about us on Twitter or LinkedIn, how much we're growing there, and how much traffic we're getting from organic Google search, and what keywords, and all that stuff we do know, but we just don't actually connect those things, because to connect those, first of all, obviously in GDPR world, you need to get clear consent, but then you need to introduce scripts from third parties that we are trying to be against, Google, Facebook, being a Google Analytics alternative, then using Google Analytics or Google scripts on your website to track your visitors. That's a big no-no in our opinion. So basically, we've chosen to do it this way. So this kind of blind spots, they're intentional, and we don't plan to change them.
Okay, yeah, no, makes sense. I mean, you have an idea about user journey, right? So because you find the notion, but you don't have the strict map out of that one.
Exactly. We know what we do, and we know what we focus on, and how that works. But I cannot put you exactly. This person today came from a blog post he read 3 weeks ago, and that's why I signed up today. That kind of stuff we don't know.
Yeah. And what about you, Julius? Do you know your user journey?
We do know different user journeys, but maybe let me address your question first. Like, how do we attribute it? There are very sophisticated ways, and there are more simple ways. And in a startup, we use the more simple ways. We basically do last click in a channel to understand, like, what's this channel-specific view. That's one border, so to say, to calculate the customer acquisition cost. We do on the web, the desktop or the web traffic, we do cross-channel last-click attribution to also understand like the different effects there, but still we attribute it to the last-click, simpler. And maybe that's an addition that might be interesting. We add something that is a third data point that I would call top of mind-based attribution, which is we use promotion codes for most of paid advertising that we do, some exceptions on banner campaigns and so on. So we know what the user had in mind or still has in mind once he or she really opens the account. Of course, it's also a bit incentive driven, but it gives you a good picture. And these 3 data points, so to say, give us a good understanding, pragmatic understanding of what's happening and what the effects are.
Cool.
And shall I continue with user journey, or do we take?
Yeah, no, go into the user journey. Go into the user journey. That's interesting.
We don't have like a full understanding of every user journey. I think we get to the challenges. We have a lot of different worlds. Cross device is a problem. App worlds are a problem. But we do certain things. We do have strong channels that are very short term, I'd say, short or need a very short time for conversion information. We have a very high share of referral traffic. So more than 30% of our users come from referrals. And that's usually something where you just need the trust of someone telling you, I have the best bank account, or this is the interesting bank account, or I don't know, you want to earn 20 francs, just do it. And then you just do it. That's really a single or few touch point channel. And we see it also when we run campaigns that you really see the effects very quickly. So we have very short lead times and decision times, which is interesting for trust product like a bank account, but decisively different from the travel industry, for example, where we had, 30 days or more decision time to order a package travel. And so that's there. And then, of course, we know that for a certain share of our users that come through a lot of information, we have a lot of PR coverage. So there is a constant info. So people have contact. And then we run campaigns from time to time, like regular, like display or performance campaigns. And then, of course, we see spikes if we scale up, for example, Google Ads or SEM. So these more last touch point channels, as they're commonly called. And so we know that there's also a certain share of traffic with multi-touch points that need some conversion.
That's interesting, right? I mean, so you both grow by word of mouth, which makes super sense, right? And it's a very, very good growth path, obviously. And you both actually attribute on last click in a sense, right? Obviously use different tools and different techniques on different channels, I assume. But but what is interesting is like how you come to the path, and what you said just now, Julius, is like you see spikes and then these patterns, right? And maybe going back to Marko, when you put a post up which is really going, like in Reddit or whatever, and it's really getting traction, do you see registration pop up a week later? And for you, is this an indicator, or do you also ignore this world? Because then this is obviously, this impact analysis is quite obvious in a lot of marketing aspects, right? If you have a thread going viral or whatever, and then you see the impact in registration, this is an interesting insight, right? Do you also kind of purposefully ignore that, or for you, these are statistics which are important, right?
Like one interesting part is that our web stats are open to the public, so you can go to our website, click on the live demo button on the top, and you can actually see the stats where we get the traffic from, where they go to, what the last click attribution, what that stands in terms of. You can click on like signups for trial. You can then see last click attribution. Basically, we do track that the normal kind of web analytics stuff. We do it through our own web analytics tool. We don't use any other third parties, so we can see. There's a huge traffic. I don't know, like Hacker News is a big website that drives a lot of traffic. Reddit, obviously, Twitter threads. If there's like a big person sharing something, we can see those. What happens though is that on those days when that big traffic spikes, it's not necessarily that we also have a huge traffic spike in signups. And that's where what I mean is like we know where the traffic comes from and where people hear about us. But that person that hears about us today from that Hacker News click they did, and then comes back 3 weeks later and signs up and like, okay, now I need this analytics tool. I heard about it 3 weeks ago on that blog post they published. Now I need it today. That kind of thing, we don't know, because we don't have any long-term identifiers. There's no user ID. There's no cookies. We don't use. So, but again, we still know what we're doing and why we're doing it. But that kind of user journey from first to last touch point is just not possible to do if you don't introduce some of these tracking measures that we haven't introduced.
Yeah, but on the other hand, right, if you do run TV, you also don't have it, right? So you have other channels or offline channels which have the similar problem, right? It's not just digital and GDPR. So it's kind of a generic problem to the marketing world, right? To track those touch points. Cool. My next question would be, how do you attribute, which you both answered already, right? You basically focus on last click because it's simplified and it tells you the actual truth of the last touch. And on the forefront, you basically look into more, let's say, what brings me awareness, right? You work with more reference code, Julius, and your Marko looks more on how many times are we mentioned, and maybe has this an impact, right? Cool.
Maybe because it simplifies it so much. Yes, we use it for simplification because we know there's a high uncertainty in there anyway, but using different data points, as I tried to explain, gives you then some more accuracy of what's the range where you're in. So, and that is
absolutely
a pragmatic way of doing it for us.
And did you guys look in any statistical ways of, for instance, because there is a causal impact analysis you can do, there is marketing mix modeling analysis you could do, that you, for instance, measure the impact of certain aspects in a window. It's not all about tracking, it's really about looking at the statistics, right? How much has this effect or this Reddit post, Marko, or this TV spot you do impact in 3 weeks? This is measurable statistics. Did you ever try something like that so far, or did you look into statistical methods to actually do that?
From our perspective, no, we haven't tried any of that. No specific reason. We're a small team and limited resources, and it's working well the way we do it right now. So we didn't find any reason to go into kind of more advanced, different ways of doing it. But yeah, like what you mentioned before, brand awareness, that is really key to the way we do marketing. If more people hear about us today because of some activity we did, that will result in more referrals, more word of mouth, more signups. Maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow, maybe 3 weeks down the line. But is that important? No, it's not for us. The important thing is that we will be heard about, and people will come and sign up when they need a product like our one. So brand awareness is really what our marketing is about, rather than just exactly knowing the user journey itself.
What about you, Julius? Did you do some impact analysis?
Yes, I'd say also pragmatic. To do the good marketing mix model or regression, you need a lot of data, and you need, I'd say, good spikes in order to see something really. And as a startup, it's usually smaller still. We had a look at it, and we look at it from time to time to see, and you see something, but it's not really improving the accuracy, so to say, of the data that we had. What's more important is really this kind of, call it A/B testing or impact testing, where you scale up certain channels or certain languages. I mean, Switzerland, you run the campaigns in 4 languages, then you can just scale one language, for example, one channel, and see whether you can see an effect there. And of course, this is a time slice and then a single effect, but it gives you another data point of what the effect of a certain channel is. So, and we're trying to really add different types of data points over time and have a feeling, so to say, for the channel.
Yeah, that makes so sense. I mean, we see also, obviously on our side, a couple of customers doing this regional, right? Selecting a region, doing something there and trying to measure the impact to have a more insightful view in what happens where and what is relevant and whatnot. So that's also what we see, just to double on that one. Cool. So thanks a lot for your insights and thanks for sharing. And when we look at the challenges, I tried shortly to summarize the challenges we have in the market today and also towards the audience. Right now, when I look at the attribution problem, I see kind of 3 big areas of challenges, right? One is really the data privacy concerns of the person, or also the government, right? Who wants to kind of make sure the person's data is secured. And we have also opt-in rates of 10 to 30%, depending on the region and the product and things like that. Then another challenge we have is obviously the trust in the attribution itself. I mean, you heard both gentlemen, why do we have startups here? Because obviously they're usually leading edge. They're both relying on last click, right? They're also looking at the awareness, but they're both relying on last click. So it's interesting to see that the trust into, Marko not at all use it, but also Julius, you really look into LTA. So the trust into the publisher pixels and then MTA models and so far. And then the last challenge we see is obviously technical limitations. Sometimes, okay, it's cookie. Yeah, sorry.
May I interrupt you, Marko? Yeah. Sorry, but it's not only about trust. That might be one aspect of the data. It's also about how much effort do you have to put in to get an extra % or 10% of accuracy. Yeah. That's for me more the point rather than trust. Yeah. If you have a multi-million or billion-dollar budget somewhere in a huge organization, then it makes sense to invest that money and it makes sense to get much more accurate, of course. But if you spend 1 million or 5, you can do it with the means that we have.
Yeah, you rather work on the content and the creative than on the touch, right? Yes, that makes total sense. And then the last challenges we obviously hear often is the technical limitation, right? To at all track it properly, or whatever the cookie limitations which you might have, or other technical issues which you have already even implementing plausible seems easy, right, Marko, as you said, but trust me, we have customers having implemented web analytics. They're simplistic web analytics, not correctly. So you always see also this, right, happening, and there are technical limitations on that. And I shortly changed to the audience and ask you guys, what do you think? And you should now see a voting. What do you think? What's the biggest challenge in attribution today? What is your opinion? Is it data privacy concern? Is it trust in attribution, or is it technical limitations? You should be able to vote now. Your screen just came up.
I voted.
That's good. What do you think? Let me guess.
I won't share, because let's see what people say. Yes. I can share later if it's.
Yeah, but now then you can be post biased.
No, I will share what I voted if I need to.
And Julius, what do you think? For your perspective?
It's two. I mean, one is the whole development on privacy concerns, but I think we'll get to that. For us, it's really also technical limitations. I'm, let's say, not enthusiastic, to put it positively, of how much or how little the possibilities changed over the last couple of years.
Yes. So I see quite some people voted. I end the voting, so you will all see the result. I think you should now see the results. Here we go. So we have technical limitations as being the biggest one, 10 out of 23, which are live and clicked, and trust and attribution, and then data privacy concerns. So what did you vote, Marko? Now you can reveal, right?
Oh yeah. I voted for data privacy, which is my perspective on things. But yeah, I mean, all three depend on your perspective, and yeah, they're all three are legit concerns and challenges for sure. Like technical, there's ad blockers. There's you can put the GDPR in technical because you need to insert that cookie consent if you want to be legal, and then most people say no. That's a technical thing. Obviously, Safari, Firefox blocking Google Analytics and those third-party cookies there.
Yes.
Google Chrome slowly going to block third-party cookies, but they're kind of delaying it because they make a lot of money from them. So there's, it's just going to get more challenging, I guess, from all these perspectives.
Hey, that's too much sales. No, just kidding. Well, Julius, what did you select?
So for me, it's technical limitations. Because this is something I said that's most prominent at the moment for us, having an app as a product, so to say, and not being able to like cut through the different words. I mean, we're not interested at all in any like personal tracking or anything, but we're interested in understanding how to get our channels and our communication efficient, because there's a base for our business model to be cost efficient, and we can't. Yeah, we can in the first stage, we can, so to say, in the middle, but we cannot connect it to the last stage, which is then the account opening and use it. So account opening only. We would never want to connect it even to the usage. That's not something that we want, because we know that trust in privacy is important for us. But this first part is impossible for us right now. And I haven't met anyone who solved it. So if anyone's here, I'm happy to learn. But that's really a pain and hindering us.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. And I mean, from my personal experience, and this brings us into the next topic, obviously, I think the privacy concern topic is, with the e-privacy law, which will come up in 2-3 years, I expect the ratification next year or in a year, it will be even more constrained, and it doesn't make sense to track it anymore, right? So the personalization tracking is basically gone. And this is also supported by technical limitations, which makes sense as a person, as a user, right? So we're all going in the right direction here. And I think you're all privately also agreeing to that, even if it's limiting your professional behavior sometimes. But I think it goes all the right direction. And also, I mean, Firefox removing the UTM parameters will also not help Marko to find out if it was a referral or not, right? It is also more difficult. But for me, the biggest challenge is actually a trust in the MTA, which you get, right? Because that's from how I see it in the customer base we have, right? Because you assume view through conversions, but you actually can't, right? Because you know all these limitations, so you have a problem in trusting them, right? Or if you look at them, you guys are safe. You don't look directly at them, but if you look at them, it's actually a big problem. And with that, I would also jump into the future. So let's look forward. Let's go into the future. Not back to the future, in the front in the future, right? Let's take the right car and move and take our garbage into it and move into the future. And if we look 3-5 years up front, right? Assuming e-privacy law to place, assuming we don't have cookies anymore, assuming all browsers will be super constrained, like how will we attribute the touch points? How will we know that even the user came from Reddit, what you see right now, Marko, and UTM parameters, because you will not have anymore? How will we see that he downloaded an iOS app because maybe you just don't even know if it's an iOS or Android anymore, worst case, right? So how will this look like? And I want to go in that a little bit. Like, what do you think? Well, what's your opinion? Maybe Julius first, because we were before just finishing up your future pitch.
Okay. I see different directions. So the first one is, I mean, maybe that's my topic today, is being pragmatic. Yeah. I don't know, a simple example, email tracking, iOS, you go from open rate to having certain triggers that you can still track. Yeah. So these kind of things. Or when it's about marketing campaigns, you don't have third-party cookies anymore. You have to adopt your campaigns. Maybe you do it in single networks where you're still able to track and really look at the effects there. of course, it will limit you. And if you have a very elaborate system, this will reduce the accuracy. But I'd say for most of the companies, startup world, yes, but even mid-size, it's feasible. And I do believe that there's a lot of smart companies working on new solutions. I mean, there has been also some evolutions, even though I was negative before, over the past years. And I don't know, one topic was fingerprinting or these kind of things. One is contextual targeting for campaigns. There's big like clustering initiatives when you look at Google and the like. So I think there will be some evolutions, but it will be more cumbersome, I guess, because you will probably have different ways of solving the different problems and not one single that covers it all solution.
Yeah, no, makes total sense. I mean, all these developments are going very slowly, right? And going very backward forward, like what Marko mentioned, right? When they once will deprecate, because it's hard to solve the topic and to make to give it the same same spin as they have right now, and not risk any revenue or things like that, right? And Marko, what do you think? Like how will you do it, right?
Well, I think a lot of things, next 3-5 years, it will depend a lot of the legal side, because that is what has changed in the last 3 to 5 years. Like GDPR got introduced, then all these challenges came with the browser, Safari pushing it, Firefox. They started pushing it after the legal side changed and said cookies are not blah blah blah. So what happens in next 3-5 will be the same. Like if there's a new law coming in or GDPR gets changed, or we could go backwards as well. They could be more free to do more tracking. They could change that, but they could make it worse either. But I think the technical side kind of follows the legal side. It's not like the technical side that's pushing the legal. It's actually the legal that's pushing the technical. So there's no like the short term. There's not going to be planning. Like you will always be able to see who comes to your site if you use some kind of, maybe even server logs or whatever, some kind of previously first thing. That doesn't change. You'll be able to see how many people came to your site. Stuff like a referral header in the browsers, that is not going away because that will break a lot of functionality on the web. So you should be able to see always at least the domain name. You used to be able to see the full URL of where people clicked. Now it's kind of the domain name, but that's not going to change because that will break a lot of stuff. So you'll be able to see the domain name. Maybe they will get rid of the UTM tags and so on by default, all those parameters.
Yeah.
But that's still, that falls then within direct none. So user agent won't change either. That again, if they remove the user agent completely, all the information within it, like the browser, the OS, that will break half of the websites as well, because that's what websites use to display the website properly. So there are a few of these elements that are kind of have been there since day one of the web, and will kind of stay there just because they are really core parts of how the web works in terms of the display of the websites. Remove them, change them, many things break. So next 3 to 5 years, legal, you cannot predict what's going to happen. Like will they make it worse? Will they make it stricter, more free, or will it just be as it is? But this kind of technical will basically follow the legal, but some core elements won't change. So if you're doing last click, that won't change because you will still be able to get that unless you're really relying on query parameters. And then I think Brave browser removes them by default. Firefox doesn't. Yeah. I think Firefox doesn't. Not UTM tags because.
Or at least has it on the roadmap. They have it at least.
Maybe they do, but basically depends. Safari doesn't do it either. Google will never change that in the Chrome because they cannot do these things because that affects their bottom line and their financials. Unless the legal comes and says, then Google will kind of do it slowly. So basically, I don't see the way we discussed how we do tracking right now. I don't see that changing that much because they're so basic and there's such core functionality of how the web works and the browsers work that cannot move too much. But how the legal works and how that kind of scales down and affects the technical side and everything else, that's a kind of big question because just looking at the last 3 to 5 years, so many things have changed. So next 3 to 5, we could have just as many changes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and the technical, let's say, battle on how you track and things like that, Brave against, Brave just removed the Facebook CLID, and I think last week Facebook moved it into the main URL. So I mean, you cannot take this away, otherwise you land on the main page. So kind of, you know, this iterations on technical debt, this kind of doesn't make sense as long as the legal rule doesn't follow. So there must be, and I think it's also correct for the customer to have some certain tracking, because yeah, you need to know kind of, at least there are some basics which are important for that. Yes. I totally agree. And actually the legal aspect is important. It really changed after GDPR, and not to forget the California Act, the Data Privacy Act, obviously, which is obviously, I mean, I wouldn't say a copy, but goes along the line of GDPR. And I mean, the e-privacy law, which is to be ratified in the next 2-3 years, will radically change that again. So it will go in that direction, assuming it will ratify, but we don't know. So that's a very good point. But going back to the statistical aspects, right? We see obviously at Nexoy, we don't track any user. We really track just the statistics because we were more in the belief that where the GDPR comes along, there will be more strict privacy rules coming up in the future. So since the beginning, we never tracked user identifiers or something like that. So we only took statistics. And we are trying to make sense of, you know, actually these different funnel steps and these different attribution just by the bare statistics. So trying to find exactly these impacts analysis. Do you believe this will be helpful in the future? I mean, we don't do it fully in the product, but that's obviously our research pattern, and we look into that, how we can help people there, right? But, you know, finding patterns, which is, for instance, the Reddit blog posts, they come and go, and then they end up in search 2 days later. This is actually, if you have enough narrowed down statistics, you can read that from statistics, not from personalized data. Do you believe such things will be more relevant, or rather not?
I would think that also depends on the legal side, because what I know from the marketing teams, they would prefer to have the data itself. You know, they would prefer to have Facebook and Google tell them what has happened actually in the user journey. Yeah. But if that is kind of taken away because of legal side, or because of 95% of people say no to have that data taken away from them, then you have about 5% that kind of is meaningless. 95% are ignored, and you're spending so much money that kind of doesn't work. So in those cases, then I would say, yeah, I mean, it becomes useful, because otherwise you're completely blind. You have nothing. So that you have some kind of statistical modeling or some kind of, I don't know, you know, Google is talking about AI now, and like how they can kind of, okay, these people are saying no to cookies, these people say no to consent, but we can kind of try and figure out how many of them have done this and that. It's not actual data, but it's kind of a AI prediction or whatever. I'm not sure how accurate that will be in Google's iteration, but definitely something that would be useful at some level for people that that need that data and that cannot get it anymore from direct sources such as Facebook and Google themselves.
And what are your thoughts, Julius? I mean, you already do some data science, right? But probably more on the custom side, less on the marketing side.
Let me put it that way. Knowing that what Marko called the channel data is also only one truth that's out there, and may not be accurate if you look at it, or we'll tell you something different if you look at it from a different perspective. I'm already now a fan of going into that direction. I think it's a very valid direction. We're trying it, as I said. We're also trying it on the marketing side, as that we just keep the words separate. So we're not trying to combine it, like where you come from and then what you do, but understand like what channels work here. And then, of course, we do use data science already and try to single out those effects. But I mean, I also see the limitations there. As I said, I mean, you need a lot of data, you need the right stimuli. If it's too many effects at the same time, it's very difficult to distinguish. And also the statistics don't really tell you the new truth, so to say. So for me, it's really trying to use the different data points that you get and derive a picture from that.
Make sense of it. Cool. Thanks a lot, guys. I look a little bit at the time, and we almost reached 45 minutes. And I got some questions in already up front, and I think you maybe also have other questions. So I would switch to the Q&A and open a Q&A section. And open a Q&A section for everybody. So you will now be able to basically put questions in, things you wonder, and then we will publish it and discuss it here in the group. And I will shortly write down what I got before over email. And this was actually one question which came in. I shortly published that here. Oops, no way. So this I got. I will shortly publish it up front. There was a question of someone who cannot join live and will watch the recording, but wanted to really ask this question. And it was, what about CDPs? Will they help us for the attribution path? And CDPs, a customer data platform. So it's basically kind of platforms which go is a CRM++, so customer relationship management platform, but also showing where the customer clicked or where he was on the website, how active he was, and maybe also what he needs or what he subscribed for. So kind of a 360 view on the customer, and that's what CDP is called. And I don't know, Julius, do you use a CDP already or not yet, or something like that?
It depends on how you define it. I mean, if it's data that we use for ourselves, of course we have it. I mean, we're not a bank, but we offer a bank account, and we have customer data that we need to use for our product, and of course for that we use it. If I'm thinking more in the direction of marketing, the topic of attribution, I mean, this has been around for a while, and also in the current world, I don't want to be too negative. I can just talk about my personal experience. We've tried it, and it hasn't held the promises that I had in mind so far. I've just talked like a couple of weeks ago to new players. They're doing it a bit differently, trying to combine data a bit differently. I think it's still a promising idea. I just haven't seen the solution working, but maybe there's one that I just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, makes sense. Marko, do you ever heard about CDP, or do you use it yourself?
I actually never heard about it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yes, I mean, I have heard similar things, Julius, like on the C, but it's a CRM++, right? It just matches more data. Is it really helpful for attribution? I don't think so. That's like my personal opinion on that. It really helps you in retention marketing, most likely. Also in the nurturing process, potentially, if the person already gave consent, right? So I think there you can drive value. There you can drive value that you find out what the person really needs, how you can help them, and things like that. But probably not on the other side. I see more questions coming in, so I just pick the next one up. So this is from Nicola. What is your opinion on server-side tracking? Do you think this can be part of a solution? So with server-side tracking, Nicholas, you probably mean, for instance, the Google Analytics option of server-side tracking, right? That you can basically take Google Analytics in your own domain and host it by yourself, which then becomes a first-party tracking solution-ish, right? And I'm obviously the expert here, so Marko. I mean, server-side tracking could obviously be also your hosting plausible yourself, right? Technically, it's
we offer well, server-side. You don't. Well, I can hear myself for whatever reason right now. Server-side tracking. We offer it as well. We have an events API which you can use then to send events and page views our way without using any JavaScript. That's the big thing in like server-side, avoids any ad blockers. So like ad blockers don't block server-side tracking, but the legal side is still there. You still, if you're sending personal data to Google using their server-side tool, that's still not GDPR. That's not okay for GDPR. You still need to get consent. So that issue is still there. It's still the same. Whether you use server side or not, it mostly helps with, I mean, there's like some security help, and maybe it loads faster because you don't need to use the JavaScript, but the legal aspect don't change whether you use server side or JavaScript. So that it doesn't make a difference in terms of attribution, in my opinion, because you still have these issues that we discussed with the legal side and privacy aspects. Maybe less issues with on technical side, because that's more difficult to block for sure.
And how do you implement it? You just filter out the IP on your side that you be compliant?
So basically, how you implement it in Google Analytics side, I'm not sure. Our way just works the same as the rest of our tracking. It's just there's no difference in that sense. It just takes a lot more effort, because you need to have at least knowledge about it and technical experience, or a team that can help you set it up. And same is the question with Google Analytics. Like, to set up server-side Google Analytics tracking is way more difficult than just to insert that JavaScript in the header of your site.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I see next a question coming in from Julia, and I think that's probably more towards Julius. My takeaway from what was discussed is not much is going to change on marketing side, because today's approach rely more on the hands-on methods than sophisticated attribution modeling. Would you agree?
Yes and no. I mean, for those who are using more hands-on method, it won't change too much. I mentioned, I think, some examples where it changes something, but there are companies who are able to do it more sophisticated and have built big systems and models and databases to get a bit more accuracy. And of course, for those it will change, and they have to adopt it at least and find different ways. So it depends a bit on your state and also your need, whether it will change or not. But I would say for startups or people or companies with a more pragmatic approach, it will be feasible to work with the situation.
But so the perfect world, right? If we are, let's say, more regulations are in place, let's assume this is coming, right? Then we have fully server-side tracking. We take out all the fields, right, which are obviously not compliant. So we are fully compliant there. We have just statistical data. And then we have the right attribution model in place in the backwards, who basically can, with the statistics, tell us more about which channel works. Would that be correct? Would you agree with that? Kind of, that would be the perfect world. So the customer doesn't have any JavaScript from us anymore, or nothing cookies. We just we don't ask for any consent. We just have the bare statistics of his visit, right? Which is fully compliant. We get this data in and try to make sense of it with the information we get from somewhere else. Is that accurate? Would you say that's the future setup? Marko, what do you think? Or Julius, I don't know. Whoever is first.
Well, I'm not really sure. Like, what do you mean by getting from somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't know. You get impressions from your Reddit blog, or how many people liked your LinkedIn post, and so you take all this noise, you put it in place, and try to make sense of it with your privacy compliant statistical data, right?
Yeah. This is the kind of what we do, and this is the kind of the more hands-on method. And I've worked for 10 plus years ago. I've worked for big public listed companies, and we had a huge sophisticated modeling and this and that, and big teams of analysts trying to figure things out. So yeah, I mean, GDPR has changed things, and it will probably change things even further in the future. So yeah, I kind of agree with this, that some of those things we used to do, some of the sophisticated and fancy stuff, are no longer possible, at least not for the full of your audience. Maybe they're possible for 10%, 20, maybe 30% of people trust you and they say yes to the consent, but they're not possible in the same scale that they were at. So like, if you're happy with 10%, knowing everything about them, then that works. But if you're like, okay, now we have a big gap in data, then some kind of a different, more hands-on approach, something like where you have some blind spots, but you're kind of aware of the blind spots, and you're trying to kind of figure out whether with like some kind of third-party tools kind of giving you some kind of statistical kind of measurements. So yeah, I agree with this.
Yep. Yes, sounds good. What do you think, Julius? Would that also be like the 5-year platform you might have?
Yeah, would be happy to have it. I mean, what you described was basically the perfect world. Yeah, we keep everything private, and still we get out the information that we want on effectiveness and how everything works. I mean, I think that was the the goal right from the start. So, and it still is the question whether you can really solve it fully with the statistic modeling that you described is still out there, but what a challenge for that. Happy if you can solve it.
Yes, no, that's actually the reason why I asked that, because I saw the next question of Julia already popping up. What do you think is the share of companies that have reliable attribution modeling in place? So tiny.
I would say even before GDPR, there was always questions like, what is accurate? There was so much fraud and ad fraud and the bots and this and that. Even before GDPR, that was always a big topic. Like, what can we trust? What is the source of truth? What is not? So, and with all these technical challenges from the browsers, the GDPR challenges from the privacy perspective, and the consent banners and all that, is just like it's just way worse now. So way tinier percentage of companies have it actually today. I don't know if any company can say that they have a very reliable attribution modeling in place, to be honest. That can be trusted 100% for 100% of the visitors.
Sure. I mean, this you can never 100% for sure not, right? But what is your take, Julius? What you would say?
You want numbers, no, and they're as accurate as your tracking, I can say. Depends a bit on the world. If you're looking purely at the digital space and only on, I'd say, web traffic, it might be a higher share, or it is a higher share. I'm sure, or I know companies who have good models in place. They're not 100% accurate, but they give you a good picture and they work. And if it comes to integrating offline channels and the like, the picture gets already much worse. I mean, also there are companies that are able to do it, but maybe let it be less than 5%. And if you then go the step and say, okay, you take the my famous example for the app world into the game as well, or other things, then it's below 1%. There might be some, but not that many, in my opinion.
Yes, and I mean, I can also give some notion on that, Julia. We see. I mean, we usually do when we optimize on the different attribution models or different things. We see that many obviously have attribution models in place, and we also do kind of cross-correlation checks with the actual, revenue or actual registration, which is actually happening. So read the bare metric and then try to model that back and see how good it is. And what I can tell you is most of them have, let's say, the right notion. So many times the magnitude is wrong. So I give you an example, like Facebook just triples your revenue and it's totally off the volume, but actually the notion of when happens when is actually something good, when is not good, that's actually pretty accurate, right? So the what I mean, the data-driven models from the most of the publishers are actually not so off, but sometimes in magnitude off, right? So they attribute way more in volume, but actually if you look just at the correlation patterns and then actually the traffic which arrives to some other later stages, it's actually not so bad. And for me, the question is, what do you mean with reliable? But I would say it's above, if for digital channels, it's definitely above 50-60% that people have models in place which are helpful, let me say it like that, right? Which help them to go in, to invest in the right order. Is it organic or paid? But obviously there are also people who have very bad models or no models which are really not working. That's also correct. Cool. Then thanks a lot for all the questions. Are there any more questions in the room? Then we can pick that up. I think we had one more which came in before, but this was already answered. Oh yeah, there was one question for you, Marko, specifically. And the question was, can we run GA4 fully compliant?
Can we run what?
Google Analytics 4 fully compliant. I don't know if you know that.
No, not in Europe, because there were several legal cases this year. Yeah. Started in where was it? Austria. Then it went to France, then Italy, Denmark last week. Basically, Google Analytics or Google, so UA, GA4 are not compliant, and they're not related to the cookies or any way of tracking. They're related to the owner of those tools is an American company. And by American law, they have to share personal data with the American government if the American government asks them to, which makes them not compliant with GDPR. There was like the French data protection agency. They kind of they put some steps like how you can proxy Google Analytics through your own server, not server-side tracking. This is completely different. It's way more complicated than server-side tracking. How you can proxy it, so all your data goes to you first, then you kind of change it, amend it, remove everything personal, then you send it to Google, and then you go on, and then you get your Google Analytics dashboard. But basically, it's GDPR according to European DPAs, and there's been several cases this year. It's very easy to find online. It's not compliant either UA or GA4 until they kind of changed some things in the way that either that there was like there was agreement between European Union and US that was made illegal a couple of years ago. So US now has to change some things, or this agreement has to come in place again in some different shape or form before it can be compliant.
Yeah, the US EU Data Act. Yeah,
Privacy Shield. Yeah.
Yeah, Privacy Shield. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So thanks for all the answers, and thanks for the good discussion. Especially, obviously, a special thank to Julius and Marko for joining me here. We are already hitting the time, and if you have further questions, as always, feel free to send it over email. The team will look at it, and we will try to answer them, or we will forward them to Julius and Marko to give you feedback. Thanks a lot for joining, everybody, and thanks a lot, Julius, Marko, for taking the time. Very interesting discussion, and we keep you posted on the attribution level, and obviously we keep you posted on if you don't have a Neon bank account, today would be the day, and if you didn't test plausible, today should be the day.
Do you serve people outside of Switzerland? I could use an account. I use Revolut these days. No? Okay.
Outside of Switzerland, that's okay, but for Swiss day-to-day banking, it's not good enough.
Yeah, you need to move in my basement, Marko, first.
Sure. Coming next week.
Sounds good. Cool. Excellent. Then have a wonderful day, everybody, and enjoy lunch. Thanks for joining. See you. Bye-bye.